Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the special segment of the Creators Hour called On Assignment. I am your host, Mike Corrado from Nikon, and we are talking with photographers that have had an opportunity to shoot the new Z6 II and Z7 II so you can get some real-world experience. We've got Michael Fayehun with us today from Canada. Michael, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Thank you so much for giving us your time, and I have seen your pictures on your assignment. We're going to talk about all that. We totally appreciate your insight on what you've experienced so far. We will talk about everything from how you got the assignment together, the creative behind your mind and what you're trying to do. Want to definitely talk about the camera and your experiences with things like autofocus, ISO, and the way you shot, the form factor, how things worked out for you, and definitely the Z Nikon lenses that you have used. So if I understand it correctly, you shot with which camera?
I shot with the Z6 II.
Yep. So I do understand it correctly because I was going to say Z6 II, but I just wanted you to say it first. But thank you for that. And we'll talk about things like the nuances of the camera, the speed of the camera, the accuracy of the camera as well, and all of those things that are important to you as a photographer. Deal?
Deal.
Great. Before we do that, you and I are new together. We basically just met on this Zoom call. I have followed your work. It's tremendous. And certainly, I've loved the wedding work that you've done and the sports photography. We're going to talk about those aspects and genres in your interview today. But for those of you that out there that don't know Michael, hey, how about it, Michael? Give us a little background on your career, how you got into photography, where you are right now. What are you all about in photography?
Thank you. My name is Michael Fayehun. I'm a photographer based in Toronto, Canada. I basically shoot weddings and portraits all year round. And in the summer and just a little bit before winter kicks in, I shoot professional sports as well as some local sports in Toronto as well. I got into photography by accident, actually. I play soccer here in Toronto at a pretty high level. And back in 2013, I had a serious injury. I broke my leg while playing soccer. And soccer was basically what I would usually do most of my time, and just being able to play the game just gives me so much, in life. And I found myself in a situation where I couldn't play the game that I loved, right? So I was looking for ways to, I guess, stay in the game and just stay close to my teammates, because obviously this is what I do most of my time, and now it's taken away from me, right? So long story short, I got a camera and I started going to games, my teammates' games, or just random games at the league that I play in, and anywhere I could find sports, right? Just to stay in the game. And the photos got better over time, and people were really happy with the photos. People would pay me to come shoot their games, my teammates, my opponents, and eventually the league that I played in hired me to take photos, obviously at games that I wasn't playing in, and that led to a few portrait work, and portrait work led to weddings. So I started as a sports photographer, and eventually that kind of led into, the professional sports scene, portrait work, and eventually weddings. I shot my first wedding, and the rest is what it is today. And what I'm about in photography on the sports side is basically to capture the peak action. And I think the fact that I play the game already, I have an eye for what the next move is going to be, especially for soccer. I played basketball growing up as well, so I just try to show athletes in their best form, right? And just to capture the key moments in the game, be it the celebration, the actual moment the goal is scored. Those are the things that I'm all about in sports. And in terms of wedding, I think the wedding day or getting married is something that's really, really exciting, and something that people are happy about. So what I'm about with weddings is showing my couples in the happiest moments, right? I show them just being happy about the special day, and them just being in love with themselves.
That's beautiful, and thank you for sharing that. We are going to be best friends because we have similar paths. Because I did go play high school football and high school baseball. I didn't get injured. I just wasn't tall enough. I wasn't fast enough when I made the transition to college. So that's when I started photographing sports. And as you say, anticipation is everything when you have the knowledge of a game to know where the camera should be. And we'll talk about all that when we look at your pictures
Right.
and talk about settings. For those of you tuning in, if you got any questions, look down below at the chat box. We have tech people standing by for your questions. If you have any questions about the Z6 II that we're talking about, or even a question about the Z7 II, but we will answer those questions as quickly and efficiently as possible. So that's going to happen early on throughout this interview. So, Michael, we have an assignment here. You have an assignment here.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about, first of all, if you're a DSLR person or mirrorless, if you've had experience with mirrorless before, and how you got yourself prepped to get this assignment together.
Firstly, I shot the D750 for the longest time, and I loved the camera, and the Z6 came along, and it was kind of like a second D750, just holding it, the menu system, everything. So the transition wasn't hard at all. It was super easy. Prior I was DSLR, now I'm strictly mirrorless. I still have some of the sports cameras, the D4S for my sports assignment, but that would change very quickly because of my experience with the new Z6 II shooting sports. So yeah.
I think that's great, because I think that gives a great basis for you to be able to say, hey, I could tell differences between the camera and how it responded, whether things were better for you moving forward. Because like you, again, we're going to be best friends, I'm telling you, because I had a chance to shoot the Z6 II as well, to do some action photography with birds, Z7 II as well. And I found right out of the gate, the acquisition was phenomenal.
Right.
The quality of the files just kind of screamed at me a little bit. But talk about, when the C6 II comes into your hands for the first time. What are you thinking? What did you notice about the camera? What are your first impressions overall?
I'm going to start with how I prepped for the assignment and how I got the ideas.
That's good, because I jumped right over that, didn't I?
Yeah, no.
But yes, talk about how you prepped for the assignment, then your first impressions.
The prep it was quite a tight timeline. And, looking at the photos, I'm really happy with what we got, with the short time I had to make the shots. Basically was told about the project, I think 2 weeks before, it was supposed to be announced. So I got a camera about a week before the shoot to be able to just play with it a little bit. And I had about a week to shoot the assignment. So on the sports side, I was looking to show, obviously, the most important thing is to have a camera that can focus really fast on moving objects, right? So I think that was what I was trying to show with the sports images, to show movement, to show how good the camera can track my subject, because, in sports, everything happens really, really fast, right? So being able to rely on a camera that could nail the focus and get those shots at the key moments, right? These moments are moments where, you can't tell an athlete that just scored a goal, hey, can you do the celebration again? If you miss it, you miss it, right? So it's very, very important to have a camera that can, nail those focus and get those shots for you at the right moment in time. And on the wedding side, there are a lot of reasons why the Z6 II is perfect, because if we're talking about during a ceremony, shooting with a loud camera, it can draw a lot of attention to you. The fact that I can go completely silent with this mirrorless cameras is a huge plus for me, right? And sometimes at ceremonies or at different venues, you don't have the best lighting setup, or you don't have the best setup, you can't even put lights or whatever, you can't use flash, for example, in the ceremony, stuff like that. You want a camera that can allow you to shoot at really high ISO without ruining your images, right? So, you have cameras that, you get to 4,000 ISO, you get a lot of noise. And one of the shot that I submitted for this assignment was shot at I think around 4,000 ISO, and it was super clean, and I was really impressed about that. So in preparing, I was trying to show again on the sports side the autofocus of the camera, and on the wedding side, you know, the silent shooting, the tilt screen, the high ISO, the obviously the tracking as well with the autofocus as well, right? So the colors of the camera and all sort of different points of view that makes the camera a great point for a sports photographer as well as a wedding photographer.
Beautiful. And I know we discussed before we got together here, you know, some of the lenses you use, the 14 to 30 f4, the 85 1.8, all both C Nikors, the Z Nikor 70 to 200, and you use the FTZ adapter with the 120 to 300 2.8, a lens that I'm dying to get my hands on. So I'm excited to hear what your experiences were, because the only other person I know that shot it was my buddy Rod Marr from the Seattle Seahawks, and I would love to have that lens to try out at one point. So we'll talk about all of that as we go. So how about we bring up some of the pictures so everybody can see the work that you've done.
Yep.
And even at this point too, it'll give us an opportunity to talk about, you know, more of what you did, how you did it. Any details you want to share right now, it's up to you. Again, we want to hear from the voice of someone like you, Michael, who has used the camera, the Z6 II, so everybody shares in your experience. So take it away. What do we got going in these first series? I know we got some soccer pictures coming up. What's happening?
Right. So I got my models to kind of simulate a typical soccer game. A soccer game is, you know, an athlete with the ball, and someone is always trying to win the ball, right? And obviously the person with the ball is trying to get away. And this is supposed to show movement and how good the camera can stay on my subject that I select. You can see here, speaking of settings, I shoot sports in AFC, that's continuous autofocus, and I always use my single point. With this camera, I did try to use the wide area as well as the high eye tracking, the wide area tracking. It held it pretty well, but most of my shots were shot like I would normally do, which is a single point. So in this series of shots, I was just trying to show and test and push the camera to its limit to see how much it can keep track of my subject without losing focus or without, you know, taking focus away from my actual subject. Because in sports as well, you have so many people in your shots at the same time. You want your camera to still be able to have the focus on the person with the ball or whoever it is that you're trying to focus, make the focal point of the shot. So if you go to the next slide, this was shot with the 14 to 30 f4 lens. We did try a few shots of this with the 120 to 300, and I thought, you know, sometimes a different perspective is always great in photos, and this is what I was just trying to achieve here with the super wide angle lens. I was literally in front of him, and if I had, you know, stepped a tiny bit in front, I would get kicked out by the ball or his leg. So I just wanted to show the scene where we were at, and also freeze the action right at the peak moment, which, like I said, is what I'm always trying to achieve in sports, just to freeze the action, get a tack sharp photo like I did here in peak moments. Next slide.
Talk to me a little bit too. I'm curious. You have these athletes, you become a director, right? I mean, it's pretty clear that during this pandemic, sports is not sports. You don't have people filling arenas.
Right.
You know, you got a few people shooting some baseball. We just commenced with the World Series.
Right.
I had the opportunity to shoot the Mets home opener. You know, we're all up at different levels, but this is a bit of a more controlled shoot. Before we move on to this, talk a little more about like, how are you getting your people together? Because I want people to learn stuff too.
Okay.
But how are you directing it? Like that first shot, I believe you shot with the 120 to 300, and then you went wide.
Yeah.
Talk about how you direct all this. How many times you get these people running at you before you're comfortable as a photographer that you know that you got? And how many times that guy have to jump, let me go back to this, and land on his butt, you know, and does he still like you at the end of the shoot? Talk a little bit about the shoot itself.
Okay. So all of my models were, so the sports models were actually my teammates at some point. Like this guy Isaiah is my teammate, for example. So I wanted to get actual real athletes not just models, because if I get a model that doesn't know how to play soccer, the form is going to be different, right? You know, you can tell this guy is a good soccer player just with the form, the way he's trying to kick the ball. So all of them are people that I'm familiar with. The soccer players are my teammates. The football player was my former soccer teammate. Now he plays football. Just got drafted in the CFL, and so I'm really familiar with these guys. I know they're good, and they're going to kind of simulate an actual sports scene or an actual sports game. So the first shot, which was them running at each other, was basically, like I said, what would normally happen in a game, right? Someone has a ball, you're trying to get the ball from them, right? So I just told them, guys, we're playing a game right now. You just got the ball, you have a 1v1 in a game, you're trying to score a goal. How do you get past your defender, right? I wasn't necessarily saying move left, move right, but I just said play, just play. And which is what would normally happen in a real game, because I have no communication with my athletes that I'm shooting, right? So all I did was say, hey, guys, let's just play, right? And this is how we got this shot. The second shot, the overhead kick was, you know, you if you watch soccer a lot, you would, you know, see athletes try to, you know, score a goal like this, right? So I was just trying to create something different. So in the first shot, it was tight, right? Here I'm trying to do something different, which is wide, right? And in photography in general, you know, we tend to always try to show the same thing all the time. But I like to show variety, show tight, you know, medium, super wide, wide, tight, and that was what I was trying to go here. Like I said, I shot this same movement with the 120 to 300, but I just wanted to submit something different, right? To
Right.
create a different view. And this view is not something you would normally see, right? And I think that's one of the things that makes really interesting photos, right? You know, try to show things that the eye would normally not see, right? If I had showed the image with the 120 to 300, it's something that, you know, I would normally see, but you know, it's not very common for people to get really close to the action like this, right? So, and that was why I decided to go super wide. We did try this a couple of times, and he did fall on his butt, but he's used to that. You know, in the games we're going for headers, we're going for this kind of kicks, and we're landing. So again, this is why, you know, I decided to go with people that I'm familiar with, that people that actually do this, right, in real games, right? So.
Mm. Well, you know, if you hired me to do this, that first time I hit the ground, you'd be doing shots of me lying on the ground, because that's so kudos to this athlete. So we're moving on to this photo too. You're talking
Yeah,
about football,
yeah,
friends of yours again,
yeah,
controlled environment.
yeah.
But what are we doing here?
So I wanted to show not just one sport. Like I said, variety. I wanted to show a different sports. So I hit up my boy Dante. We just got drafted in the CFL, but unfortunately, obviously, COVID is not able to play. So I just asked him, you know, to if he was in Toronto, and luckily he was, and asked him to come out for a top secret shoot, because, you know, we couldn't let anything out of the bag, right? So, but it was really kind enough to come out to kind of do, you know, what it would normally do, right? So so what I did here was just have us again simulate a typical football game. You know, what do you do in the games? You're catching the ball, you're running with the ball, you're kicking the ball, right? So which is where the first two shots of this series is from, this one and the one of him catching the ball. So the shot from the same play. And what I was trying to do was, obviously, I had a limited number of photos I can show, but I wanted to show that, okay, this camera didn't just grab one shot. It grabbed the next shot and the next shot and the next shot, right? And in the promo video that was released a few days ago, you can see in one of the shots I was laying on the ground that I was able to get a wide range of shots in the same motion, which is where the 14 frames per second come in. It's huge. You know, in my D4S, I believe I have 12 frames per second now. With the Z6 II, I have 14, which, you know, makes this even a more attractive option for me to be able to shoot sports, because the difference sometimes between a good photo and a great photos, I'm sure you agree, can be a split second in sports,
Mm-hmm.
right? It could
Mm-hmm.
be the placement of the hand. It could be just the right moment where the ball is between his hands. You know what I mean? So having 14 frames per second allow you to get a wide range of shots in sports, and you're able to select the absolute best shot, right? So, which is why I included 2 shots. This is before the ball arrives, and the next shot is just almost right when the ball arrives, and you can zoom all the way into his eyes. It's talk sharp. It's really it's a really sharp photo from his helmet to his shoes. And then we again try to do something different, which is a super wide shot. So if you go to the next shot, I believe it's okay. So this is again a continuation of the shot. The other shot was him just catching the ball, and in football, you're running most of the time, right? So this is me just getting him in that peak running action, right? Just to show his form, his shape as an athlete. You can see his detail, that this guy is a top athlete, right? The movement, it's perfect, right? And then I believe now we're going to the wide shot, which is the next one. Right. So in this shot, again, we had to make him, you know, try to catch a ball. He did fall quite a lot. This is even worse than the than the soccer shot, because the ball has been thrown really far away from him to show him actually going for the ball. You can see his eyes really sharp. You can see his mouth to show um, you know, him actually being in that moment to catch the ball like he was playing an actual game, right? So this was to show you know, his form as an athlete, and you know what would normally happen in a game as well, right? So this is really fast movements, and the fact that the camera is able to get really tack sharp photo is amazing, right? It's amazing, right? And you get 14 frames per second. You get a larger buffer to be able to shoot a lot more than you would in the older camera, and it gives you more to work with, basically.
Yeah, and I want to mention too, you mentioned that interview that went live. We had Chris Hoganek from Nikon Canada do a similar piece like this. It's on YouTube right now, so everybody tuning in. Chris is an amazing guy from Canada on the tech side, and you guys had a nice conversation. I've seen that piece, so please go check that out. Also, if you have any questions, check the chat box below, and we have tech people standing on by to answer those questions quickly and efficiently that you may have on the Z6 II or even the Z7 II or the Z Nikkor system. I'm loving this, Michael, and I want to step back to this picture too, because there's some subtleties here in the darks and the shadows within the black range where the shoulder pads are into, you know, and like you said, I mean, detail, the sharpness on these, incredible.
Yeah.
Again, the computer never does justice to this. You know, when you go to enlargements, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Exactly.
But the detail in this is quite amazing. Talk a little bit about dynamic range, Seer, because you're looking at white clouds, you're looking at dark clothes, and certainly some shadowed areas. How does that make you feel? For me, there's a confidence level that I found shooting both the Z6 II and Z7 II, where these files pop. I mean, that's just my experiences from the time I've had with the cameras. Talk about the quality in a sense of what you expected, and now is your confidence way up?
Absolutely. You know, you said it already. One of the key points with this camera again is the dynamic range, and being able to get, you know, your whites, the detail in the sky. You know, you don't lose. You can recover your shadows pretty well. The information is pretty all in the photos, right? So and sometimes even, like, I think most of the shots I got almost perfect in camera, and that was really amazing that I didn't even have to pull out, you know, shadows as much as I would normally do. And you know, it's a huge improvement from the Z6 that I currently shoot with. So the fact that I shoot with the Z6 right now, I can easily tell what the major differences are. And you're absolutely right. The dynamic range in this camera is just absolutely spot on.
Beautiful. Thank you again for sharing this. And I feel for these athletes that jump time and time again, but then again, they do that for a living. I keep putting
Yeah,
myself in that place. Like, I jump for this once and Michael, can we take a break? But here we go again, even wider. This is
even
gorgeous.
wider. Yes,
Yeah.
you know, something different again. Same scenario of him actually going to get the ball. This is you know, just doing something different again from the tight shot. Um, yeah, it's an amazing tracking in this camera for sure.
No, again, these are just beautiful. So now we go on to another genre that you mentioned that you do quite frequently,
Yeah.
and wedding work. And does your mindset change in the way you handle the camera settings? I mean, we didn't talk about color before, but what are your white balance settings? What are your color settings? For me, a lot of time with sports, I just kind of let it go to automatic and white balance because of the different venues I jump
Yeah,
into.
yeah.
Unless I know the specific light source, I don't dial in the Kelvin or the specific setting for white balance. But between sports and weddings, how are you handling white balance?
Okay, so you know, we've been talking a lot about cameras and settings and all this stuff, right? And I just wanted to make it a point to let the viewers understand that, you know, everything is not a camera, right? But the camera is just a tool. Yeah, that this is the way I see it. It's just the camera doesn't take it takes this photo, but it's all about the thought process that comes into play before you actually click the shutter, right? So I don't want the viewers to automatically think that, you know, if they get a camera, they take amazing photos. No, it's just a tool.
Absolute
It's
point.
just a
Yes.
tool. But the best tools would allow you to show your vision, to achieve what you're thinking, right? And this shot is a perfect example of the dynamic range that you're talking about. You see the sky. It's I did not really add any super blue. This is almost straight out of camera. And in terms of white balance, I shoot auto because, you know, sometimes I don't like to think too much about the settings really. You know, what I really like to do is to show what I'm thinking, tell the story, like I was saying, right? Yeah, which is to either maybe showcase the location as an element in the photo. Here it's the sky and them just being absolutely happy with themselves, just in a clean background, right? So the thought process for this was basically, this was my first series of shot when we got to the location on the wedding side. So to answer your question, I shoot auto white balance. My settings, it doesn't really matter, but it depends on what I'm trying to do, right? It depends on if I'm trying to make 10 people in focus, right? Which is when I will shoot f8, f11, or I have just one subject where I can stop down to, sorry, I can shoot as wide as 1.2, 1.4, whatever, right? So it all depends. You just have to be able to understand what you're trying to do. And that's what would usually guide what the setting is at the end of the day, right? So here we get to the location. It's a bright sunny day, and you know the sky is beautiful. And I just wanted to show that, right? It's a beautiful blue sky day, and I just basically placed my subject in a higher plane than I was standing, and just have them hold hands and just be happy with themselves. And that's how this first shot came into play. And the second shot is very similar to this because all I had to do was observe my environment, right? And you know, I'm always looking to have different elements in my shot to kind of have you look back at these photos and say, hey, I remember this was taken here, or you know, this is what was happening when we took this photo. So all I had to really do was move to my right and observe. I saw these trees and I was walking past and I thought, hey, this is going to be an interesting composition with the lines and the shape of the trees and all that stuff. And they basically are doing basically the same thing as the first pose, but it's just a different composition, right? So, and I like to play a lot. I like to play around and playing around with my environment, with my subjects, is how I get creative shots, right? It creates something different.
This is a
Yeah.
perfect example of what you just cited, because let's go back to the opening. We want to talk about your creative and your mind. here is a perfect example of now you taking the tool and doing the work that your mind and your heart,
Right.
is
Yeah.
showing you or guiding you to.
Yeah.
And again, did that creative of looking around and seeing. It's just a beautiful transition.
Right.
It's interesting because I love the simplicity of this shot with nothing,
Yes. Yes.
involved. And then you have the tree as the element to shoot through the
Right.
tree and create that structure, that,
Right.
geometry in
Exactly.
front of the couple. But
Right.
you have no choice because you creatively focus to the subject using, that select focus area to
Yes.
just draw you
Yes.
right to the subject, to the sharp part of the
Exactly.
frame and the white part of the frame. But
Right.
you mentioned dynamic range, and that
Yeah.
shouldn't be understated here too, because of the sky, the
Mm-hmm.
whites in the dress, the
Mm-hmm.
darks in the jackets,
Right.
and
Right.
that range between dark to light here, that has always been a wedding photographer's nightmare sometimes, is trying to balance the white dress
Absolutely.
with the black tuxedo.
Yeah.
And I think you've done it perfectly here. But again, I think you also, that word confidence comes to me because when I can focus on what I'm doing, no pun intended, and focus on the subjects, I'm shooting more efficiently that way. And
Right.
those are great points that you bring up. I love
Absolutely.
this frame too. Again, you start to bring in architecture. So you've used nature, you use architecture. Talk
Right.
about your mindset here. What's going on?
So here, you know, again, I'm trying to create a clean composition, right? Obviously, get my subject well lit. It's a really good sunny day, so the light was given to me naturally. So place the couple in a very clean composition where they're kind of isolated and there's no distractions around me. And I just wanted to again create an image that shows that plays with that has the plays as an element in the photo, which is why I included some parts of the building. And I should also say that this was not my first shot. My first shot, so up until this shot, I had to build a couple of frames to arrive at this shot, right? So initially, this is a very long building up to the left side of the frame, and right in the middle of this building, there's a huge, I think it's probably a water pump or something. It's right there in the middle, and I thought this is distracting from the photo, and the first thing that came to my mind. Usually, my mind wanders a lot, and the first thing that came to my mind was, okay, I'm going to take it out in post. But that's a bad idea for me. I don't like to do that, right? But sometimes that idea comes to me, and I'm like, no, that's not how I shoot. I try to get everything perfect right in camera. And the truth of the fact is, almost every shot here is almost right out of camera. Not much done in here, almost right out of camera. So what I did, and it can be a good practice for portrait photographers, sport photographers, wedding photographers, is just move. Sometimes the difference between a, a bad photo, a good photo, and a great photo is you moving one step to your right, one step to your left, one step high, one step low. Try to create a very clean composition. It's easy for me to say, okay, this is a very beautiful building. Let's put everything in there, include the ugly water pump, then go back to Photoshop and try to remove it, and then it's not as good or whatever it is. But I ended up with this shot. I just moved closer. I wish I could show you that first shot, but this ended up being my final shot, and I was really happy about it because it's almost out of camera, almost straight out of camera. So what I was looking for here is a clean composition, having the building as an element, and obviously great lighting, and the moment is there. The moment is them holding hands, him leading her. She's if you zoom in, they're just being happy at themselves, and just trying to create shape. In terms of posing, I should mention that and with the female side, I'm always looking to create a shape, right, which is her, having a right, leg forward to create an S curve in her body, her holding the dress. All of that is very intentional, right? The elbow is not straight, the elbow is a little bit bent. All of that is intentional to create some form of shape and something interesting, right? Not to make it really really flat. So that's how I came up with the shot, and it's definitely one of my favorites from the series.
Well, I love it too. And you mentioned earlier that you have a success using the DSLR D750. And one of the things I found in the transition to mirrorless, and you can't ignore this, is the coverage of autofocus is 90% of the frame, as opposed to the 5 targets or more, in the middle of the frame. I say 5 targets. I'm dating myself because more targets through the years, far more than 5 when I started. But talk about that. Do you said single point? Are you moving that single point to the edge of the frame? Because for me, in composition, it changed everything. No more recompose and shoot, lock, focus, and
Absolutely.
recompose.
Absolutely.
Is that an advantage to you? Use that a lot?
It's one of the biggest advantage for me, because if I had shot this with my D750, I would obviously have to focus and recompose, because the focus points don't even get close to where they are right now. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you focus and recompose, you're fighting a lot of stuff, right? There's a huge chance that your shots are going to end up being in focus, right? But the huge advantage with this mirrorless cameras is the coverage, right? I use
Mm-hmm.
single point, and I can literally move my point up to the edge of the frame, and that's pretty much what I did here. The fact that I also have the option to just touch, where I want the focus to be using this touch screen. And that's exactly how I got here, because sometimes it's just faster to just touch where the person, the subject is, right? So instead of like just dragging, but the fact that you can use almost the entire screen and put your focus point there, it's great for composition. It's huge for composition, right? So and that's exactly what I did here. Uh,
Mm.
so in sport, I shoot AFC, which
See?
is AF continuous, and in weddings, I actually change my mode as I shoot. If I'm shooting moment, I'm always on AFC, and I use back button focus. I hope that's not too much of a big term, but back button focus is basically you assigning the AF on button at the back of the camera as your focus, as opposed to the shutter like after the
Right. You
camera on the left.
disengage
So
AF through the shutter release.
yeah,
I've always
so
wanted to do that, but my brain can't compute like thinking and shooting,
trust me,
focusing at the same time. But I know a
change
lot of people use that technique, back
it, and
button.
I'll tell you something. The first time I used the back button focus, I went back because it was so hard. But change is usually hard, but it's one of the best things that I do now. The fact that I
Hmm.
can use back button focus and just focus on my subject and move, and the focus is being the subject is being tracked, and everything. It's amazing, right? It's just a huge change for sure. I agree, because I used it and I went back to using my shutter, then I had to come back, and ever since then it's been great. But yeah, it's great being able to use the entire focus points in the camera for sure.
Beauty. Well, I love this image. I know it's your favorite. It's one of my favorites as well.
Yeah, it's
But
one of my
again, to
favorites.
your point, though, being able to not have to move back and forth with recomposing and locking
Yes,
focus, it's all we talked about. It's all about gesture, right? That little
right,
moment where you're trying to
right.
get hands with,
Yeah.
and having to recompose, it would kind of make me start looking at the building edges again. And I think
Mhm.
that sort of takes you away.
Yeah,
Great success with D750. Love the technology,
yeah,
accurate focus, incredible.
yeah.
But to have the 90% coverage to me is worth it. So more
Yes.
of a portrait here, a little bit more of a close up here. What's going on here?
So here I was trying to create a kind of fashion look here, and the sun is really high, and that's why the bride is closing her eyes, because if she opens her eyes, it's pretty harsh. So I just have her just gaze at the sun with her eyes closed, just creating a shape with her body, have her on one side, the hands bent a little bit, and the gentleman over here just giving me a gentleman pose, and just me and Morgan over there. And
Mhm.
again, these guys are real couples. I actually shot the wedding the week before this shoot, and I just used the opportunity to let them know that, hey guys, I'm doing a top secret project. You guys able to, wear your wedding dress again, and come out for a session, and they were really really happy to come out, and they were amazing, right? So and I should say something about this composition here. is if you look to the left side of the groom, you can see there's a structure there, and to the right there's a structure there. The fact is, right behind the groom, there's another structure there. And it's very key to be aware of what your composition is, because there are a couple of frames that I did to start with that had the building kind of popping out from his head or from the side. So it's something to always look out for, right? Things just popping out from people's body. So the fact that it is in the middle right there is very intentional, right? It's just to make him separate from the building, right? So to avoid any kind of distractions, coming out from his body, right? And on the bright side, I try to put her just in the middle of that tall structure behind, just to make it stand out and not have things, poking. Or if I had put the bride too close to the grain thing just standing right there, then she would kind of blend into the structure. So all of that, the groom crossing his legs just to create something, a shape, something different, all of that is intentional, right? So it's things that I look out for when I pose my subjects, distractions, things poking out from people's head, and things blending into people. It makes a huge difference in photos.
It's like you said, that little subtle difference between a great photo or an okay
Yeah,
photo
yeah.
is to pay attention to all those details. So
Attention to
great,
details,
great
yes.
lesson to be learned for those of you that are getting into wedding photography and are thinking this all out. Now we mix a little bit of beauty,
Yeah,
human, nature comes together,
yeah.
rock formation. What's happening here? What do you know? Remember what lens you shot this with?
This was shot with the 85. This was
Right.
shot
Did
with
you
the
did you
85.
do this shot? What was the lens with this shot as well? Was that the 85
This
1.8
was
as
the
well?
85 as well. And I just find myself these days, just 85 is my favorite lens right now.
Mhm.
I shot an engagement session a few weeks ago, and I shot the entire thing with the 85, both wide and tight shots, all with the 85, because I just love the compression, the lack of distortion that you have in the wider lenses. So I shot this at 85, and it's slowly becoming a very key lens in what I do. So again, this shot wasn't the first frame that I did. The first frame that I did was having them stand really higher on the rocks. And the reason why I kind of stood away from that was the horizon was bothering me. The horizon was kind of cutting through them. And I thought, it's a little bit of a distraction. Can I do something different? I got the shot, yes, but I moved on to something different to see if I can get something better, right? And
Mhm.
it's something that I try to do, because sometimes the difference again between a good and a bad photo is just those a good and a very good, or great photo is just a
Great
solid
photo.
difference.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
So, and I just moved them because I wanted to have the sunset, the subtle sunset element behind them, the rocks in there. And again, I introduced my strobe in here, just create something different. I think this is the only shot that I had that included a strobe. And I think it's very important as photographers to see ourselves as problem solvers, right? A lot of times the wedding day, for example, doesn't always go as planned. I don't know if I've shot a wedding where everything is right on time, everything is going according to plan. No, it doesn't. It doesn't always work that way, and I think this is maybe one of the reasons why people don't like to shoot weddings. But I enjoy it because it's very challenging, right? So here we're losing light basically, and imagine I don't know how to use strobes, right? I'm kind of stuck, right? And you can see how much of a pop the strobe adds to the couple, creates something different. So here, yeah, the elements are the subtle sunset behind the rocks, just showing the beauty. You can call this a fashion look, just showing the colors with the skin, and just them being really really glamorous in this scene. So it's a combination of a lot of things: the light, the elements, the rock, the poses, right? So yeah, that was what I was trying to create, and I really enjoyed this compared to the other one. The other photo I did was good, but again, it was that horizon. I thought it was a little bit distracting, and I wanted again a much cleaner composition, which I think I got here.
I think you did too, because I think two things about the horizon. Like you say, the background tends to be more important than the foreground sometimes. Of course, in this case, the models, the couple is far more important than anything. But that
Right.
line, if it doesn't cut in just the right spot, it is a
Right.
huge distraction. And then
Right.
more times than not, Michael, this big critical mistake. And the world does not live like this. The horizon doesn't sit like this. And if
Yeah.
you're not perfect, that means more post production. And yeah, we got
That's
all the tools
correct.
to
Yes.
straighten. And
Yeah.
actually, you can do that in camera and
Yeah.
retouch. But
Yeah.
to get that nailed there. And this
Yeah.
shot, and amongst the building shot and some of the other shots, amongst the other shots, we talked about AF acquisition and things like that, but it reminds me of the things that I just can't do. I always tell people, like, I couldn't even engineer designing an on-off switch, let alone a mount for a camera system. And I think it speaks crazy to the quality of the camera, the edge-to-edge sharpness. And when you mentioned that 85, my little short story is I worked with one of our video people here, Chris Hirschman, a Nikon ambassador here, working on his video. I got to go along on the assignment. And he had a light setup, and I just grabbed the 85 1.8, and I snapped a picture of him. The sharpness and detail of that lens, I mean, it speaks to the overall Z design, the wide mount, edge-to-edge sharpness, same thing through the viewfinder. And I hate to kind of throw this plug in for the cameras, but these are the things in getting to talk to engineers that we have an advantage to understand a little bit more. And I don't think people get the fact that there's so much detail and attention put
Right.
into creating optimal image quality
Right.
to make everybody's life easier. But you bring up that 85 1.8, the
Yeah.
1.8 series,
Yeah.
phenomenal. The 1.2 series now, the 51.2, I
Yeah.
can't wait to dig into that.
Yeah.
And here we go into a more landscape, beautiful.
Yeah.
Talk about this image. Sorry to steal that a little bit, but man, you're getting me excited because you're seeing it, right? And you feel it and you experience it. That subtle difference between good and great could be that, that edge sharpness and detail. Talk about this.
Yeah. This was shot with a 70 to 200 2.8 S lens. And what I was trying to create here was something fun, something that involves movement, right? Again, it's a variety, right? It's something different from the other shots that we've had. And this is actual real scenarios that I would usually face on the wedding day, subjects moving, and I wanted to test it. And, not just in good light. This is not necessarily the best light, because if you look at the background, you can tell it's getting dark, right? This shot, I believe, was shot at 4000 ISO. And I can't really tell you that I can see any noise in here, to be honest with you. So it's really sharp. It's composed in a way where I'm showing the scene, which were on a very busy beach, and the composition was made to kind of avoid most of the people that are there. There's still it's a little bit of some hint of people there, but I believe we were able to remove everyone by composing properly. I did not remove anybody in this shot with Photoshop. This is almost right out of the camera. And I wanted to also, there's something I noticed in this shot when I was composing. I noticed that there was a car in the parking lot way behind me with the headlights on. And I thought, hey, this is going to make a beautiful rim light around the bride if she's standing right behind the light. And I had to move a lot just to make sure my composition was right, to avoid showing the car. And you can tell how much of a difference this rim light, makes in the way the bride looks, right? It just cuts her out and just separates her from the background. It's lovely. And one other point with the camera is having a 14 frames per second. I shot this in burst, and I want you to pay close attention to the leg movement. The leg movement was intentional in terms of picking my final shot because I wanted the peak of the action, right? She has a leg mid-hair, he has his right and left mid-hair, and, having, such a wide number of shots within a short period of time allows you to have, scenes. It allows you to freeze the moments really, really close to each other to be able to select the best of the best of the best from the moment. So the composition was intentional to avoid, all of the distraction in the back with people being in the beach. And this was shot when the weather was really good. So you can imagine that there are a lot of people there. You know, the water coming from the right side is done intentionally to show you that yes, we're on the beach. The rim light behind that, it wasn't my light, it was me paying close attention to my environment, which I said already. You have to be able to look around and see different elements that you can incorporate in your shot. It makes a huge difference, right? And then the moment is right there. Them just looking at themselves, you know, just having fun and just being happy with themselves. Everything is everything I believe, you know, just worked out really, really well for this shot.
I love that you are thinking about all of this stuff as things are going on. Because honestly, when this picture came up, yeah, I've seen it in, you know, small proof sheets and things like that. But that's the first thing you go to is that rim light on her shoulder. And if you're experiencing the same thing I did with the Zenith Core 7200, it is incredible. I mean, and to pick up the detail, to have that fringe lighting, to again, to see the wrinkles in the jacket of a dark
Mm-hmm,
black jacket or
mm-hmm,
navy blue, I can't really
mm-hmm,
tell, but
mm-hmm.
dark jacket, and then the detail on her dress. I mean,
Right,
but for
right.
you to kind of build it up the way you are seeing it,
Yeah,
that's the price of admission for an interview like this. I just absolutely love it.
yeah.
And I know I believe this is the last shot as we
This is the
take it
last
away.
shot, and this is
Yeah.
my favorite shot from this. And
Tell me why it's your favorite shot.
why is this my favorite shot? So it's pretty dark now, right? And like I said, it's all about problem solving. It's dark. 5 years ago, I probably would have gone home and thinking, okay, there's no light. There's no light, there's no shot, right? But now I'm thinking a little bit different. If there's no light, what do I want to do? What I want to do, does it involve you know, light? If it does, do I have light? Yes, I use the light. Do I have light? No, I create the light, which is what I did in the two shots before with the rock and having a strobe. But here I already, you know, did a strobe shot. So I thought, you know, it's sunset. We have the view of the CN Tower. And like I said, this is really, really, really busy. And what did I say earlier? Sometimes you have to move left, right, up, or down. And what did I do here to avoid, you know, the hundreds of people on the beach? I just shot this really low. And in the video, you can see that I'm actually using the tilting screen. The tilting screen was up, and I wasn't with the camera in my eye. I was actually looking at my display, and you know, I can see, I can preview what I wanted. I created a silhouette out of this shot just to, you know, show the scene, to show that yes, this was shot in Toronto. It's clean. Okay, so what I love about the shot is the composition. It's really clean. There's nothing distracting here. You know, it's the CN Tower. It's the way he's holding her. The space, the distance between his hand and her hand is intentional to create that shape of them holding hands, not like them like gumming together. The fact that she's holding her dress up, not her elbow straight. I intentionally told her to bend her hand. I have shots of her, you know, extending her hand straight down, but I had her create that V shape to show something, to show shape of her holding the hand. It's the space between the leg of the groom, right? To show, again, another small triangle there to create something different is the space between his right hand and his body, not to make him wider than it looks. And the last thing that I actually look for is what my subject is doing. I start with my light, obviously, then I go to my composition, which is, okay, do I have distracting elements in my shot or not? Then I go for the moment, right? The moment is, you know, the way they're holding hands, the way the hands are, the way they're standing. Ladies, you know, you have to create that shape with the body. Guys, you have to make them stand firm and just be a gentleman. And here, it's not a light shot, it's a silhouette. So it's very important for me to get the shape of their face, right? Which is why they're having their face to the camera, right? Because if they're looking straight at me, it's just an underexposed shot, right? But the fact that they're looking to the right of the camera, it creates the shape of their face, and you can kind of, if you know these people, you kind of tell this is this guy and this is this girl. So it's a lot of things in this shot that I really, really love. It's the sunset as well. Yeah, it's my favorite shot for sure.
That, again, thank you for dissecting that and telling us all of your thoughts. You know, I see everything you're saying, and the one thing that stands out to me that anybody who's been in love knows this feeling and this touch. It's the way his fingers on his left hand are touching her right hand in just that little simple gesture of connection. And you know you're in love when you can do that, and then your heart's like pump up and stuff. So pretty amazing stuff. Let me bring you back full screen. Michael, really, I can't thank you enough. This has been a really great session. A lot of great insight. Thank you for sharing all the technical, but thank you for sharing the emotional as well and all of your thought process, because again, in segments like this, I love the fact that we can educate and inspire and then kind of drill down to some of the features, because a lot of people tuning in, they want to know how you use the camera, how they should set up the camera, what Michael does, I want to do. And, you know, so to get the kinds of pictures that you're looking for. But the way you're in tune with your images about every little detail, you know, especially with the car lights in the background, when you find those things and you discover those things on the fly, it's like you said, it's the difference between making a good photo and a great photo. So thank you for sharing that. That's amazing stuff.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for giving us your time. If you're tuning in, another Creators Hour segment on assignment with Michael Fayehun. Great talk. If you missed any part of this, go back to the beginning and watch it. We also have other photographers on assignment that have used the Z6 II and the Z7 II. Michael talked about the Z6 II, but go to NikonUSA.com and the Creators Hour page, and you can see the full calendar, what's to come, and who we've spoken to before. We appreciate your time. We love your passion and energy. Again, for Nikon, I am Mike Corrado. Everybody out there, go take some great pictures, share them with the world, share them with us. We'd love to see them, and everybody be safe.
Thank you.